10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Papa John's podcast. It is Monday morning. That's right, it's Monday. You know, the weekend was good, and we're back on Monday. It is what it is. But I'm here to complete my series on the 13 families of the Illuminati. So today, we're going to be focusing on the Li family out of China. And again, you're going to hear more of the same ties to Satanism and a lot of other things that are just going on amongst another family that rules the world. So sit back, relax, and enjoy, and we're going to dig into the Li family in my continued series of the 13 families of the Illuminati. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Papa John's podcast. And we are continuing on with our series talking about the 13 families of the Illuminati. And it is scary. The more I do research, the more I read about each of these families, the more I realize that they literally control every aspect of the world, every aspect of our lives. They control politics. They control world governments. They control it all. And the scariest part for me is that it seems that almost all of these families are tied to. So when you really sit down and you think about it, it appears that everything in this world is basically being controlled by Satanist groups. And when you think about that, it is really chilling. It is terrifying. It is very, very difficult to learn. But I think it's important for all of us to sit back and see these families for what they are and what our world is basically being ruled by. So it's crazy stuff, but we're going to continue to move on and look at these families. So the first thing I see when evaluating this family, the Li family out of China, there's a lot to talk about here. They had very early known visits with the Rockefeller family. They're tied in with all these other families. And again, there's said to be a lot of Li families right now that are tied into the Illuminati families in America and throughout the world. So it's kind of crazy. So we're going to get into, there's a lot to read here. I'm not going to get into all of it. I'm going to skip around a little bit because we'd be here for 2 hours if I read all of this. But I'm going to get into some highlights of the family, and this will hopefully allow you to dig in and do some more research on these 13 families. And I will recap who those families are and which podcasts we still have left to go. All right. So we're going in and using the same documentation I've been using in the past, and it basically starts off by saying there are a number of members of the Li family, and Li, Li, is a very popular name in China, Hong Kong, Singapore, etc. So it starts off by saying, I don't know which of the Lis are closely related and which are not. I do not know that Li's control, well, I do know that Li's control Red China, Hong Kong, and Singapore, and have important positions in Taiwan as well. If the various Li's which control these various nations are related, then we are certainly looking at one of the most powerful families in the world. And honestly, this is a family I've never heard of. So in terms of power, that would be just as powerful as the Rockefellers. So they also connect to secret occult societies, but the secret societies, which are the Li's, which the Li's are major players in the Chinese secret societies, they will also be covered later on in this particular document. All right, so which members of the Li family are part of the Illuminati? All right, so the researcher has learned that from a source that Li Ka-shing and the powerful Hong Kong Li's are definitely part of the satanic Illuminati Li's. In terms of whether the Li's who run Red China are part of the Illuminati, I know nothing that directly connects them. However, there are clues that make one wonder. For instance, why do the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds have such a cozy relationship with the red Chinese Lees? And I think we're seeing that today. Why does the premier or prime minister of the People's Republic of China, Li Peng, visit with the Rockefellers and other capitalists when he comes to New York City? Is he such a hardline communist, having the communists named the capitalists as the major enemy? And then when we watch men who are in the Illuminati, such as the Skull and Bones, George Bush treated the Chinese Lees with such closeness, even when it was Li Peng that crushed innocent people at Tiananmen Square. It makes us wonder still, in fact, with other places of the puzzle that I have in place. I do know that Red China is already cooperating with and part of the New World Order. The only way that China could already be secretly part of the New World Order is for the leaders who are the Li family to be in favor of the New World Order. This strongly suggests that the Li family in China is also part of the Illuminati. From what I know, the range of possibilities range from being only sympathizers with the World Order elite to them being outright members of the Illuminati. I lean towards the latter view, which is them being members of the Illuminati. Then there is Singapore. Singapore is lock, stock, barrel in the New World Order. They went to a cashless society before anyone else, and that's what our country, the United States, is trying to go towards. One of the Li family, who spells his name Lee Kuan Yew, a Cambridge-educated lawyer, was director of Singapore for decades. He has ties to the British elite, and an example of his dictatorship, Lee didn't like long hair on men. So men coming into Singapore with long hair would have their passports taken away and either got a haircut or went to jail. In 1959, of course, I'm bald, so that wouldn't matter. But anyway, in 1959, when Britain gave Singapore the independence, the Lee family, in this case also spelled L-E-E, Lee is normally spelled L-I, it was controlled by the People's Action Party, which ruled the country in 1976. The People's Action Party monopolized politics so much that they won all 69 seats of parliament. Lee Kuan Yew was placed in an all-powerful position of president in 1965, and he remained there until 1991. Singapore's leaders made Singapore very anti-communist during the Cold War, and when Nixon began his trips to Wu, China, Singapore began making goodwill political missions to China. In 1975, Lee's henchman, Foreign Minister S. Rajaratnam, I don't even know how to pronounce that, but that was a shot. Let me try it again. Rajaratnam, I think is how you pronounce it, went to China and met with Chu Eng Lee. Chu Eng Lee was the mentor and friend of Yu Peng. So it all ties together, right? So briefly, we'll talk about Yu Peng's early life. Actually, to be more specific, after Li Peng's father, who was a leading communist, was shot by the nationalists in 1931, Chu Enlai more or less adopted Li Peng and raised him. Chao Enlai got Yu Peng into Moscow's school system, where the Russians finally realized his brilliance and wanted to keep Li Peng and train him for their own purposes. And Yu had to escape back to China. For whatever reasons, Li Peng was an advocate of the Soviet style of economics before being placed in his prominent position that he holds today. Li Peng managed the Chinese economy for many, many years. So we're going to get into talking about how Li met Mao. In 1976, Lee Kuan Yew himself met with Mao Zedong, then the leader of Red China. Mao Zedong himself is closely tied to the Li. Li Taochung was the head of the Communist Party in northern China during the fighting with the nationalists. Mao's bodyguard was a Li family member, Li Yingkuo. Mao's mentor was Li Tongchao, who also had ties to the Red Spear's secret society. Other early ranking communists such as Qing Tai, Hu Long, and Liu Chimtan had memberships in the Red Spear Secret Society, and Liu Changhan, an early communist leader, was a member of the Green Gang Secret Society. We will cover more about the Li family and its relationship to Chinese secret societies later, as well as explaining some of the various powerful secret fraternities. It may well have been that Li Tao Chao's guidance that led to Mao Zedong writing the first systematic attempt by a Chinese Marxist to characterize the class basis of secret societies. After emphasizing their importance for revolution, Mao cooperated with Cao Inu Hiu, the secret society that helped his revolution, but strangely, the official collection of Mao's works neglects to include Mao's appeal to them for help. The neglect is noted on page 4 of The Popular Movement and Secret Society in China from 1840 to 1950. Mao Zedong is also a product of the harlot Christian church. Mao, as a boy, had wanted to learn of Christ, but then attended a missionary school. And when he went to it, they threw him rudely out because he was Chinese. Mao never forgot the bad treatment he received at the hands of the Christians. This explains in part his hatred of Christianity. So let's take a look also at a closer look at the Illuminati family, the Lee Illuminati family in Hong Kong. All right, we're going to tie some of these things together. We're at about 11 minutes. I like to keep these all below 30 minutes in time. I mean, the real sweet spot is 20 to 30 minutes. So I'm going to have like another 10 or 15. So I'm going to wrap this up. And then it's up to you to do your research. I want you all to dig into the 13 families of the Illuminati and read about this yourself. But this is something that just kind of gets the ball rolling for you. Okay. So anyway, the Rothschilds, who we've already done a show on, and the Rockefeller families have a very high respect for the Chinese and Japanese people in relation to some of the other people in the world. That is one reason why China and Japan are being given the chance to be important players in the New World Order. The powerful Li family in Hong Kong is part of the Illuminati. This family maintains a good public relations. They are philanthropists. Billionaire Li Ka-shing donated money to create the University of Shantou in South China. The cost of the university and its teaching hospital were reported at 85 million US dollars in Fortune magazine back in 1992. And now I'm going to try to go through this chart if we can probably convey this to you, via radio without visuals, but the following chart shows Li Ka-shing's financial empire, which extends worldwide. They are located, believe it or not, at 60 Broad Street in New York City. So that's kind of an interesting that that's where they are based. So it looks like the estimated value of his building in New York City is $100 million. He owns Star TV in Hong Kong, which has a capitalization rate of $300 million. He owns Husky Oil in Calgary, which has a value of $1.3 billion. He owns Canadian Imperial in the Bank of Commerce, and that would be Toronto's Market Bank, its value at $4.3 billion. So we're talking about some serious money here. And we're not done. Pacific Place in Vancouver is a $2 billion property development. Suntec City, Singapore, with a $1 billion property development with its partners. So, I mean, obviously this family has a ton of money. So we're going to read a little bit more about this. So according to Forbes magazine, in 1992, Li Ka-shing is worth $4 billion US dollars. Another article notes that he made $13.4 billion from real estate deals in 1991 alone in Hong Kong. Li Ka-shing has lived in the same house on a hill in Hong Kong for 30 years. Li Ka-shing has little to no formal schooling. He is self-taught. His sons have been well educated at Stanford. Victor became an engineer, and his older son, Richard, majored in computer science and is running Star TV in Hong Kong. Other wealthy friends of Li, Ka-shing get together with him regularly to play poker games. Yu Ka-shing is chairman or chief executive of his 4 big companies in Hong Kong. He hires Cavendish International. He has an investment company called, through his investment company, he's got Hong Kong Electric. Both Chinese and Western executives for day-to-day management. Simon Murray, a Dalton who served in the French Foreign Legion, is one of Lee's trusted managers. Murray had worked for Jardine Matheson, a business owned by one of the Committee of 300. Yu has built global alliances with British companies and is part of Pearson, a British holding company, which in turn has interest in Lazard banking arms in New York City, London, and parts. As one can see, Le Ka-shing is doing business with the big boys of international banking. Lee also has joint ventures with MTV, AT&T, Motorola, and Time Warner. You can see how it's all interconnected. It's crazy, right? Oh, so Lee Star's TV broadcasts 5 channels to the viewers all the way from Israel to Indonesia. That's a huge reach. The program comes from the BBC News, MTV, and some minor partners. Lee is giving Madonna and the rest of Hollywood to the Asians. Lee also invested in Vancouver, British Columbia. He brought the Expo 86 site, which is 1/6 of the downtown of Vancouver. 27% of Vancouver's 560,000 citizens are of Chinese descent. Vancouver is a triad stronghold. All right, so crazy stuff, the reach that these organizations have, and it shows how powerful these groups are. So I've got probably 5 or 10 minutes left, so let me go through this as quickly as I can. I don't want this to be anywhere over 30 minutes. Let's talk about the rest of the Lee Hong Kong clan, and we'll see if we can get through this and maybe one other thing. The huge Bank of East Asia, BEA, is run by Yu Kwok Po. BEA has gone into partnership with such Illuminati-connected companies as G. Warburg. Lu Kwok Po, also known as David Lee, also serves as the Hong Kong legislature as the counselor who represents the banking community. He is also the vice chairman of the committee, drawing upon future Chinese administrative regions that Hong Kong will soon become. He was chosen for this position by the Red Chinese because he was chosen by the Chinese mainly because of his family background. The extended Lee family, with most of its members holding British passports, is one of the territory's rich and influential old families. Far Eastern Economic Review referenced this in June 1989 on page 47. Lee has been urging the Hong Kong people to trust the Communist Chinese government. David Lee did not comment on Tiananmen Square massacre when asked. David Lee holds a full British passport and can go anywhere he wants. Most people in Hong Kong have only a Hong Kong passport that gives them British citizenship, but does not entitle them to travel. David Lee's uncle is Simon Lee, who was a justice of appeal in Hong Kong, but also selected for the BLDC. His other uncle, Ronald Lee, was the former chairman of the Hong Kong Stock Exchange and a member of the Basic Law Consultative Committee. Ronald Lee and his son got caught using their stock exchange positions in corrupt money-making offenses, as were brought to trial, and he doesn't know how that actually turned out. So who knows? It was probably swept under the rug. So many major infractions are. We can talk about Epstein's Island all day long. So another uncle, Lee Fok Kao, was elected in September of 1988 to represent the Hong Kong financial community in the government. When the scandal broke concerning the elite BCI, the Hong Kong branch of Bank of Credit and Commerce Hong Kong was shielded from investigation. BCCHK's chief executive, Tariq Jamil, who could have also been called upon to answer questions, skipped the country. Hong Kong authorities made no attempt to stop him. David Yu got involved and suggested that the exchange fund be used to help his BEA acquire BCCHK. Another key figure in the BCCHK was Louis Sabol, who was previously Bank of America's chief contact with Red China. Louis Sabol had traveled to mainland China regularly since the 1940s. He is rumored to have done dubious practices while chairman at BCCHK, but he left the country for destinations unknown. All right, we're at 18 minutes. Let's see if I can add one more thing here. I'm scrolling down. Still looking. All right, I want to read about this. This is interesting. Let's talk about the Lee family and the Chinese secret societies. You know, we've learned about the Skull and Bones. I'm going to do separate shows on some of the American secret societies after I'm done with this series. So that should be interesting as well. And I'm going to start with the Skull and Bones. But let's get into the Lee family and some of the Chinese secret societies. In the investigation done of the Triads, one discovered that the Lee family is one of the principal families which has controlled it. The Triads is a Chinese secret society, which is something of a cross between between the Masons and the Mafia. That's kind of terrifying. Something in the line of P2 Freemasonry, except much bigger. The triads are not known well in this country, but they are many more times powerful than the Mafia. It is known that the Mafia was invited to work with the triads in 1970, and at the time, the Mafia didn't like the triads' arrogance. However, in my opinion, the triads were not being arrogant considering how powerful they were at the time. I suggest the reader read the article on the triads for more understanding on this. So if you want to learn more about it, you can look up the triads and learn more about this Chinese secret society. And maybe we'll do a show on them at some point as well. For the sake of completeness, I will list some of Lee's past and present that have been important triad leaders. So that's something I probably will do a show on to learn more about the triads. So let's see. So this is basically his text. So I'm reading this. I'm not going to try to weary you with these strange names, but in breaking new ground on understanding the powerful Illuminati's family, its specific details are not given out. We risk losing some of the picture. The Lees control Hong Kong and the triads run Hong Kong. Is there a connection between the Lee family and the triads? Yes, there is a big one, and it is very, very secret. So here are triad leaders of the family. Ready for this? Li Cheng Tao, overseas leader. Li Heslin Chin. Li Hensing Ching. Li Hung. Li Ka Chen. Li Lap Ting in the Kwanzi province, La Ping Ching in the Triad of Shanghai, Li Xing Chin, Li Wen Mao, Fa Chan, Lu Yangfa in Hunan, Lu Chao Fat in Hong Kong, Lu Jafar Ma in Britain. I mean, there are just tons of these. And then, of course, there are a number of Lee families that are also north of Peking. So the Lee family has also provided some of the greatest scientists in the field of genetic research. Genetic research has been an avid interest of the satanic hierarchy. So there you go. We've got another family, the Lee family, based in China. They have reached throughout the world. They have ties to Satanism, ties to secret society, and they are yet another family that is embroiled as one of these 13 families of the Illuminati. So I'm a little bit more than halfway done with the families. Let me read off the names of the families again. We have the Astor bloodline, the Bundy, the Collins, the DuPonts, the Freemans, the Kennedys, the Lees, which we just did, the Onassis, the Reynolds, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Russells, the Van Doon bloodline, and then we also have the Moravian bloodline, which is European royalty. And then we have other associated families, the Disney bloodline, the Krupp family bloodline, and the McDonald bloodline. Then you hear about celebrities such as Jay-Z and Beyonce. Who knows how deep this goes? But we're going to do the best we can in trying to research this and get the information out there to you. I hope you enjoyed this version of the 13 families of the Illuminati. And today we focused on the Lee family. So I hope you all have a great day. And please tune in for all of the other podcasts that I have out on all the different platforms. You can find me, the Papa John Podcast, on all major platforms, Spotify, iHeartRadio, etc. And you can find each of my podcasts that run usually under 30 minutes on each of these individual families that are known to be members of the Illuminati. Okay? Have a great day, and thank you for tuning in.